Hello, welcome to my talk. My name is Joseph Mbele. I am a Tanzanian. I teach here at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. I'm in the English department. I've been here since 1991. Before that, I taught at the University of Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, my country. I was there in the literature department from 1976. So outside of teaching, I am a cultural consultant. I help especially Americans and Africans navigate cultural differences. So I help Americans who go to Africa. I help them prepare for life in Africa, life with Africans. It's different from what it is being here in the United States with fellow Americans. It doesn't matter whether they are Black Americans or white Americans. I just consider them as Americans. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. I also help Africans who come to the United States, or Africans who interact with Americans in Africa. There's a lot they need to learn in order to understand the ways of the Americans, how Americans talk, how they act, how they behave, how they think, those kinds of things. And I help Americans understand the Africans in the same ways, understand how we talk, how we act, how we think, how we behave, how we do things. It can be very challenging. Inevitably, it is challenging when the two come together in whatever capacity, in personal relationships, in business relationships, at the workplace, in the marketplace, on the street, anywhere. So that's what I do. And in these activities, I'm just being myself, representing myself. I do my own research, and I do my own thinking. I observe things and I draw lessons, and then I share them with people in many ways. I give talks, presentations of different kinds. I run workshops. I have published some books. These are my main resources, actually. There's this book here. I have mentioned it 1,000 times. Africans and Americans Embracing Cultural Differences. This one I published in 2005. And it's used very, very widely by Americans who go to Africa, by Africans who are in the USA. They go to it in order to understand the kind of issues I have alluded to. And then I published a sequel, building on that first book, extending the argument a little bit, providing more insights. This one is called Chickens in the Bus, More Thoughts on Cultural Differences. Today, I would like to introduce to those people who don't know this, a cause that I've created to help African Americans who go to Africa, African Americans who live in Africa, especially those ones who are trying to establish businesses or who are already doing businesses, or those who just decided to go and live there. I'm not talking so much about those who just go for a week or two and then they come back, tourists. I'm talking about those who actually have decided to go and live there. So I've created a course to guide them in their interactions, in their experiences with the Africans. I chose to write or to create this course because I think about myself and my experiences when I first came to the United States and my years in the United States interacting with Americans and the many challenges. I think about those, I remember those, and I know how difficult it was sometimes to understand the Americans, even to be understood by them. It's just a lot of stuff. So because I went through this, I really don't want everybody to wade through these unknown, situations and figure things out for themselves. I think if I've gained some insights, I should share them with other people to make life a bit easy for them. It's not necessary that everybody should reinvent the wheel. So I'm very passionate about helping other people because I know they suffer whether they talk about it or not. And one of the big problems with culture is that we just follow the culture that we grew up in. We live according to the values, the principles of the culture we grew up in, and we are not even aware of them. They are just a natural part of our lives. We don't even think about them. So when we are in a different culture, we encounter difficulties, and it's not easy to recognize those difficulties as perhaps, based on cultural differences. We end up being irritated and impatient, angry, offended, until we realize, and it takes time and effort until we realize, the things that we experienced, were not meant to be offensive or they were not meant to irritate us, to offend us. It's just people acting according to the principles of their culture, people talking according to the principles of their culture, just like we do, talk and act and do things, according to our cultural norms. It takes a long time and really some effort to figure those things out. And so I have testimonies of people who, after they read my book, they then discover that they've lived, with certain experiences for years, but they didn't know exactly what was going on. And so they realize they are learning, after a long time that they suffered for no reason. And there are testimonies like this that I hear from people who have used my resources, particularly the books. So I've created this course, and there is a link at the bottom of this video to the course. And I know some people, they go to Africa, and I'm talking about African Americans here. they go there intending to leave the American ways behind and just embrace the African culture, live with the Africans, you know, work with the Africans, do things together with the Africans, integrate themselves in the societies there. I'm addressing these types of people. People who want to do business with Africans. I know there are some African Americans who just want to go build a house, enjoy, a different lifestyle, lifestyle different from the lifestyle in the USA. They live by themselves. They don't really want to mingle with the Africans. So I don't have illusions. And the work I do, the cause I created, the consultancy work I do is meant for people. Now, in this case, I'm talking about African Americans who really want to live in Africa and embrace the life, of the people in Africa in some ways. They can never be Africans. Maybe their grandchildren, will become Africans, culturally speaking. And so I look at them as Americans. That's why, in my book, I talk about Americans, and I don't, distinguish between African Americans, white Americans. I know African Americans here in the USA think a lot about race, and they probably expect me to talk about race, but I was not brought up that way. My mindset is not programmed that way. I don't see the world from a racial perspective. I don't look at things or see things, with a racial lens. So whether you're African American or white American, from my point of view, the point of view of culture, I just see all of you as Americans. This may sound strange, but I will say this. If you go out of the USA and live abroad, and you are African American, say you go and live in an African country or in Europe, you will discover you are American. Yes, when you are in the USA, you might just assume or think or believe you are really very different from, the white Americans. And you are in some ways. But from a cultural point of view, if you go abroad, say you are in Africa or in Europe or in Asia, that's when you realize you are an American. There is an essay by James Baldwin, a very famous African-American writer, who did just that. He left the USA, went to live in France. Throughout the 50s, he was there, early 60s. He wrote this article, The Discovery of what it means to be an American. The discovery of what it means to be an American. I will have a link below this video. He actually confesses that living in the USA, he believed, he was, as a black American, really different from the white American. But living in France, he discovered he is American as any other American. It's an interesting kind of idea, and this is the idea I work with. So when I write my books, helping Americans understand Africans, I don't make too much of a distinction between the black Americans and white Americans or any other kind of Americans. Certainly, there are certain peculiarities, pertaining to the African American experience in Africa, and I talk about those in the book. For example, as an African American, you go to Africa and you see all these black people there, and you might assume, they are your people, and you start interacting with them, and then you will realize they are not really your people. So in that sense, I do understand there are some differences, but on a fundamental level, you are an American, and so the advice I give in the course, the lessons I give in the course are meant to capture that reality and to help you, discover your Americanness, your American identity. You follow the course, you even just read the book here, and the other book. There's even an essay in this book titled Being African in America. I'm an African, and I talk about my experiences here in the USA, and you will see in that little essay how I experience American life as an African. You will see it's not really the way African Americans experience American life. I'm not experiencing it as a black person. I'm experiencing it as an African. Interesting distinctions. So it will help you to look at the resources, to use them. And I have testimonies. You can see some of these testimonies on my website. I have a link to my website, again, below this video. Check out that website. Check out the testimonies from African Americans who have relocated to Africa and what they say about the resources I have created. So I also invite you to get in touch with me by email. I will have my email address for you. Get in touch with me. I would like to, from time to time, organize Zoom talks. We can communicate by Zoom. We can communicate by email if you have questions. Feel free to reach out, and I'm absolutely excited and eager to work with you. As I've said, I experienced the hardships, the challenges of living in another culture after I came to the United States, and I want to help other people so that they don't have to undergo, the difficulties that I underwent. I want them to have things, a bit, easy, and not for them to have to rediscover the wheel. So that's it for today. I wish you all the best.